Orleans Saints could have the NFL's best secondary. Michael Thomas, what kind of expectations should we have after week one? I'd say they're fairly on the positive side. And also we have some unfortunate news to talk about with Peyton Turner and his injury. All that coming here on this Victory Monday edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Houdat Nation? Welcome back inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Vogel, and as always, this program is brought to you by Scott McNair Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, or hurt offshore, Scott McNair handles it all. You can give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. That's right, a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win, and the Saints fought for the win on Sunday, beating the Titans 16-15. We had the immediate post-game recap yesterday with the live stream, so if you guys missed that, you can definitely go check it out. I'd say a lot more animated in terms of our expressions. A lot of it good, though, because of what the Saints were able to do on the defensive side of the football, and I think that's where we'll start with today's show, is talking about the potential of this secondary, because when I look at the New Orleans Saints and I start to theorize what they could be this season, I think a lot of it comes down to this secondary. And I think you have the main guy, obviously, your star, your lead in Marshon Lattimore, right? But just like any other thing in life, what are the pieces around that star? Are they supportive enough to make this thing rock? And I think for the Saints, they're more than adequate. This is a really, really nice unit overall. So let's talk about it. We know what Lattimore brings to the table. We saw it yesterday, had an interception, very well could have had two, especially towards the end. There's one I thought if he breaks a little bit faster, that might be a house call. So Lattimore was outstanding yesterday, not surprised. I think he's one of the three best cornerbacks in the league. And for my money, when he's on, I think he's the best cornerback in the league. But let's put that to the side. What do we have around Lattimore? Well, let's start off with a guy opposite of him in Paulson Adebo. Last year, not a good year for Adebo. A lot of injuries, was just never able to get his footing underneath him. He was able to do that yesterday, had an interception that should only help his confidence. But I thought Adebo also played well. I thought outside of one sloppy penalty, there wasn't really a lot of moments where I'm like, oh boy, like here we go, or just didn't look into it. So I thought Paulson Adebo did a really fine job. So you know your outside corners are good. What about the slot? That was a question for a lot of us. The Saints cut Bradley Roby, a little bit of a head scratcher. I didn't get the move. I thought it was risky. But what I will say, and this is why sometimes coaches know better than people, and this is why you bet on talent. Alontae Taylor struggled in the preseason. I thought he struggled in the slot. I didn't think he was looking good enough for them to go, okay, let's get rid of Roby. But what I did say was the Saints are banking on him figuring it out and rising up to the challenge. And the Saints are also banking on him having a crazy development period, right? Like some guys might need the whole year, and they're banking on Alontae Taylor week in, week out, getting better in the slot. And that's exactly what Alontae Taylor did yesterday, because I thought Alontae Taylor had a lot of really, really good moments. And similar to Lattimore, he is a hair off from a game-changing play. And I tweeted this yesterday, and I'll say it on this show so we have it in writing and we also have it visual/audio. Alontae Taylor will have a pick six at some point this season. His speed in the slot with his playmaking ability, it's just a really good match for the Saints, and it's a terrible match for opposing offenses, and I think you will see that at some point. So your outside corners are playing great, and your third outside corner who's playing in the slot right now for week one looked outstanding. I got to give Alontae Taylor's props. And again, I'm going to go back and do a rewatch today, and I'm going to put any of my findings on Twitter. We'll do some small videos and whatnot. So if you guys are interested in that, just stay tuned for content on there, and I'll make sure to have some updates about things I saw in the second viewing, good and bad, but I'm sure there'll be a lot of good when it comes to defense. So you have those three. How about the backups? And I think this is where it comes into play, where I start talking about how good this Saints secondary could be. So Lattimore misses a play, and in comes Isaac Yiadom, and you think that Tennessee's like, okay, we're going to test this guy immediately, right? You put in the backup, we got to test him. They test him down the field. He ends up breaking up the pass, sets up a tip drill interception for Marcus May. So the immediate chance they have to test him results in an interception for the Saints. And then Ugo Amadi comes in for Alontae Taylor, who was cramping, and he has a pass breakup that he should have intercepted, hit him right in the chest. So not only were the starters playing well yesterday, the backups who fought their asses off to get that spot on the 53-man roster, because this Saints secondary is loaded with talent, so it wasn't easy winning those positions. Those guys played well yesterday. And then, of course, you got Marcus May, who had an interception, and you had Tyrann Mathieu, who reads the field extremely well. So the Saints secondary, they came to play yesterday, and the biggest stat of them all, and the most telling that people are going to bring up, and I think you can't bring it up enough because it's just insane. The Saints only had 7 interceptions as a team last year. They had 3 yesterday. And honest to God, Tannehill was so terrible yesterday. The Saints could have matched their season total interception last year in one game. Because this secondary was flying around the field, making plays nonstop. And last year, although they were second in yards given up, which is fantastic in terms of the pass, they weren't taking away the ball. And you got to be able to take away the ball to be a really, really good football team, to be a contending football team. And I said when I did my bold predictions for this year, the Saints are going to finish top 10 in takeaways. And it's just 1 week. But I feel good about it because what you saw in the preseason is now all of a sudden week 1, it's there. And you have a weak quarterback schedule that comes up with a guy like Bryce Young, who I think Bryce is so talented, but he's still a rookie. More opportunities for the Saints to make plays. So let's get into something not as positive defensively, and that's the news involving Peyton Turner. This one really does devastate me. Peyton Turner has a turf toe injury that will require surgery, so he's going to miss an extended period of time. And man, does this stink for Peyton Turner. I know the initial reactions when you go on social media is to make fun, to crack jokes, Marcus Davenport 2.0, whatever people want to say. And I get that because at some level, social media, if you can't handle the jokes, you probably shouldn't be on there because it is an avenue for a lot of people to just let off steam or say whatever. When it comes to Peyton Turner, though, man, I feel bad for him. I feel so bad for this guy that he's finally healthy all summer. Doesn't have any setbacks. Is making plays in the preseason, making plays in training camp. He looked good in mini camp. And the first game of the season, after being healthy the entire summer and saying, you know it's go time, you know that you're finally healthy, you're feeling good, gets hurt. And not only does he get hurt, I thought yesterday maybe he tweaked his ankle because it looked like he was holding it. And now you find out it's turf toe, and it happened on a quality rush from him. And if we go back last year, Trevor Penning had turf toe in late August. He didn't come back till week 12. So if we're going to use those similar numbers, you're probably not seeing Peyton Turner till sometime in December. If he's ready and PT goes well and all that. That freaking sucks, man. It sucks. It sucks for Peyton Turner. It sucks for the Saints. And it's just shit luck. I don't know any other way to put it than it's just shit luck. Last year, he got hurt making a good play, and he tried to get out of the pile up, and someone fell on him. So I know a lot of people are calling him soft, and I get it, and I know it's probably soft of me to get annoyed by it. But sometimes you just have shit luck, and he's in that situation right now where even when things go right for him, something's going to go wrong. And when everything's perfect, something stupid's going to happen. And I feel for Peyton Turner, and I hope he gets back on his feet. I really do, because I think he was turning the corner. I really do think he was turning the corner. But again, it's another setback for him, and I feel terrible, and we got to hope that he bounces back. So in the meantime, what do the Saints do without Peyton Turner? I think you got to go with your 4-man rush that you got, and that's with Carl Granderson, who was phenomenal yesterday. 1.5 sacks and 4 QB hits. Cam Jordan, all reliable, 0.5 sack, 5 tackles, looked great against the run. Tano Passenger. Tano didn't really record any major stats, but he did have 2 QB hits, and I thought when he was in there, I thought he looked really good. So I'm really excited to see what he can do in a little bit of a bigger role. And then the rookie, 2nd-round pick, Isaiah Foskey. Healthy scratch against the Titans. He will not be a healthy scratch anymore, in my opinion. I think you're going to have to play him at some level. Doesn't have to be an ample amount of snaps, but it's do or die time now for him in terms of being able to make an immediate impact. Because this is the door, right? It's opening for him. The door open for Foskey now to go from healthy and active to being active on game days. And then you got to show the coaching staff that you can get some limited reps in here and there in the pass game. So we'll see what happens. But Granderson being great yesterday does make me feel a little bit better about this. I know and think that Cam still has good football left in him, and we saw it yesterday. And the interior, right? The interior's got to continue to play well. And I thought, Brian Brzee looked really good yesterday. Can he look even better in week 2? That's certainly possible. But again, Peyton Turner out. That freaking stinks. And I just feel bad for him. I really hope he has a speedy recovery. Now, before I get into Michael Thomas, because I'm going to do that in just a minute, I want to get to one of our sponsors of the show, DraftKings Sportsbook.
Can you believe we've had 7 months without an NFL game? Crazy, right? Well, good thing that's over. NFL's here, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is giving you a can't-miss offer. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 on any NFL game. DraftKings is hooking everyone up with game day greatness. Download now and use code BOOT to sign up. New customers can take home $200 in bonus bets instantly just for betting $5. That's code BOOT only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours.
Once again, thank you to DraftKings for being part of the program. So let me get into Michael Thomas and my thoughts on him, and then I'll get to any comments, questions, predictions, concerns, thoughts that you guys put in the live chat. I'm going to make sure I pull that up for you guys towards the end of the show, and we'll talk about what you guys have to say for the final 15, 20 minutes, whatever it may be of this show. So I appreciate you guys, as always, on this Monday morning tuning in. So let's get to Michael Thomas. 5 receptions, 61 yards on 8 targets. Is that the most eye-popping day? No, but I watched Michael Thomas yesterday, and I was extremely impressed with what I saw, and I'm also encouraged by the role that he may have, because for once he actually has help. So let's talk about both with the role. First off, the role, 5 for 61 on 8 targets is still pretty good in my mind. Chris Olave was the only other player with more targets than Michael Thomas, and that's the way it should be, because Chris Olave should be the wide receiver 1 for the Saints. He's in year 2. He's packed with potential, and the guy is just really, really nasty. Like, Chris Olave, it's a casual 112 that he had yesterday. Casual 112 receiving yards on 8 receptions. He was outstanding. So you expect Olave to be wide receiver 1. But Michael Thomas, for me, in that wide receiver 2 role, should flourish. And I thought yesterday was a good example. You had some of those routes over the middle of the field on crucial downs. You had the deep pass to start off that first drive for them, which was really nice to see. Didn't look like a slant pass to me, but I know for Twitter, it's pretty hard. I think everything he runs is a slant. Wasn't a slant there. But anyway, Michael Thomas looked good, but I think it's the fact that he doesn't have to be the top guy anymore. And I think that if Michael Thomas plays a lot of games this year is going to be the reason why. When he has to be the guy, he has to be 1A, 1B, 1C. So much wear and tear on this dude. When you need him to be the man every single play, every single drive, it's a lot to ask for, especially at this stage in his career when he hasn't played a full season since 2019. It honestly isn't unfair to ask. It's impossible to ask it of him. So now you're telling him, can you be a really, really, really good complementary piece to this offense, which I think he's going to thrive in, and we saw it yesterday. Because not only is Olave taking that step to be wide receiver 1, Rashid Shaheed, as frustrating as that opening kickoff fumble was, man, he was good yesterday. He was really, really good. 5 for 89 in terms of receiving. Also had 2 rushes for 11 yards. Would have had more if Kirkwood didn't get called for that hold late in fourth quarter. Shaheed stepped up. Shaheed was great on the deep ball. Shaheed was great with the double move. Shaheed was great in terms of using his speed. I thought that for this duo, both guys entering year 2, they're going to take so much pressure off Mike that Mike isn't going to feel like it's 2019 where he had 175 targets. You know how ridiculous 175 targets is? That's so much wear and tear that you're going to end up having on this receiver. Saints aren't going to need that. If Michael Thomas has 8 targets a game, I don't know what the math gets him up to because my math's a little shaky at the moment, but I believe that'll get him somewhere in the 140s, 150s, and I don't even think he's going to need that. I think it's going to be less than that for him. Like, I think Michael Thomas will be fine getting 6 to 8 targets a game, and I think he'll do great in that. And there will be a game or two, if he's healthy, that Michael Thomas goes off. I have no doubts about that. No doubts. But for yesterday's game, when you have Olave, when you have Shaheed, when you have Juwan Johnson, I think the ball spread out pretty well. And I think it's going to get easier for him when Alvin's in, because the one thing I saw yesterday was Mike, after he played really well to start the game, it felt like a little bit more attention to detail was on Mike, and then who started benefiting from it? Chris Olave, who just absolutely ate in the second half. When Alvin comes back in the fold, and Alvin's running routes out of the backfield, you are absolutely, and I'm going to say this in the most, I'd say, casual way possible, you are fucked if you're a defense. You're fucked because you have to figure out Chris Olave. You got to figure out Shaheed's top-end speed. You got to figure out Michael Thomas dominating that intermediate part of the field. You got to figure out Juwan Johnson being an emerging threat at tight end. And then out of all that, if you do all that right, there's still that chance that Alvin comes out of the backfield and makes you miss, or Alvin just beats his guy one-on-one easily. The Saints will be able to put people in a bind defensively if they're able to keep everyone healthy. And of course, if their left tackle can actually block someone, but that's a different story for a different day. I'm sure one of you guys mentioned in the chat, and I'll get to that in a second. But Michael Thomas, expectation-wise, the rest of the year, I think for him, he will be fine in this type of role. If he gets 60 yards receiving every single game, I take that in a heartbeat because he doesn't need to be the Michael Thomas anymore. He just needs to be a really, really solid player for them. And I think he can absolutely do that. And I think he can do more. But I'm keeping it fair right now because I think Olave and Shaheed are ready to rock. And I think we saw that on Sunday. So I think Michael Thomas, for once in his life, has pretty good help around him and that's in the Saints receiving core. And that's going to pay dividends for him. So I'm really, really excited to see how this all flows for Mike. So let me get into any comments that you guys pulled up. And that's how we're going to kind of close it out on this Monday morning. And we'll start off with Alex here, who says, one of the deeper secondaries I can remember the Saints having as well. Amadi came in and was very effective. Even out and got a few snaps, a clear edge, especially against an easy QB schedule. Well said, Alex. Perfectly agree. You have, in my opinion, the most talented secondary in the NFL, packed with a really weak quarterback schedule, and also the fact that they're starting to take away the football. I think like those are going to go hand in hand. The talent and the weak quarterback schedule should equal more turnovers. Yesterday was a good example of it. Trav504 says, who dat, everybody? Trevon King says, I went back and watched Penning's game. Wasn't that bad. Just when he loses bad. Well, I'm curious to see how that holds on a second watch. I do agree with that part that you said, though. When he loses, it's not bad. It's awful. When he loses, his ass is on the floor, and you can just tell he just got beat like a drum. So I do agree with that aspect. Just call me Trey. Panthers next. Good opportunity to get out the blocks hot. Who dat? Yep. I mean, the way this schedule is built for the Saints, it's very easy for them to start off like 3-1. Like, you can beat the Panthers. Maybe you lose at Green Bay, which is tough, and then you come home against Tampa Bay and you take care of business there. And if the Saints were able to do that and start off 3-1 with being 2-0 in the division, that is the key to the playoffs. That's the key. Beat your division and take care of games you should win. Like, even though I said Tennessee's a very formidable opponent, I thought the Saints should beat them, and they did. And it wasn't pretty, but they did, and that's all that matters. Max says, what's good, y'all? Who dat, baby? Alante pick 6 with the crystal ball. We'll come back and look at this. I promise. It's happening. Alante Taylor pick 6 happening. Jerry G says victory Monday. Wesley says, do you think Penning played better in the second half? It looked like he was starting to get some tight end help and Carr a little more time to throw. Yeah, I think for that, it was the Saints actually gave him help. And I think the one thing Ross Tucker said on the broadcast that I had to agree with, and I didn't agree with a lot that Ross Tucker said, was at some point it's the Saints' fault, right? Like when he starts getting beat nonstop and you continue to let him be one-on-one with Arden Key, whose fault is it? Is it the player's fault now or is it your fault? It's the player's fault at first when he starts getting beat. But when you visibly see he can't handle one-on-one, but you're letting him stay in those one-on-one situations, then it's on the coaching staff. Good job of them adjusting, giving a little bit of help, making sure they're chipping around the edges. And yeah, Carr had more time, and guess what? Carr played a lot better in the second half, and it's not a coincidence why. Mike H says Lonnie Johnson as well, big on special teams. Yeah, Lonnie Johnson absolutely smoked some dude on special teams on one of the returns. He was great. Really good point there. Jerry G, man, the O-line needs a major fix this week before facing Carolina next Monday night. Yeah, O-line needs to be better. I think that a lot of it, look, didn't have the first team playing all together in the preseason. You had one drive of that. That's going to hurt. Different cadence. Trevor Penning obviously struggled. The stunts that Tennessee was given hurt. But I also think Tennessee's a really good defense. I want to make that clear, right? Like, I was not happy with what I saw from the Saints offensive line. But I also think Tennessee's got a really good defensive line. And I was on I forgot the name of the Titans show that I was on this past week with Justin Mello, really good guy. And he was talking about the Titans defense. And we were going over how kind of underappreciated their defensive line is. And you kind of saw it yesterday. They have a really good unit. DJ says, my Monday morning team meeting got canceled, so I was able to join the stream. LOL. Saints arguably have the best secondary in the league. I stand on that. I stand all 10 toes down on that. Okay? I think this secondary is one of the best, if not the best in the league. And I believe when this season's over, if the Saints play at this rate, they will be the best secondary in the league because they got the superstar in Lattimore. They got the great supporting cast around him. You have the young, talented guys in Adebo and Alante who can take that next step. And I like the veteran duo at safety. They can continue to get better. Just call me Trey says defense for sure is top 5 at this specific moment. I can confidently say that coaching in crucial situations and the O-line are only concerns. I do agree. I'd like the Saints to be a little bit more aggressive. In terms of coaching, though, this is where I will give the Saints credit. Pete Carmichael did not do any lazy runs late in the game in terms of run concepts. I thought when the Saints had the ball with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, they might just say, oh, let's just run it up the middle 3 times, make Tennessee use their timeouts, and then punt. But no, diversified the run game with end arounds. Let Derek Carr air it out in crucial spots. And when you needed it, 3rd and 4, you're in field goal situation, when you needed a first down, ice the game, finally, there's a huge hole that opens up for Jamal Williams to run through. I know he fumbled it, but thank God he recovered it on his own. I think that for New Orleans, I'm going to be critical of this coaching staff when they deserve it. And I'm going to also be fair and give them props when they deserve it. And Pete Carmichael, for all the flaws that there were yesterday, when it was go time, he was at his best. And I got to give him credit there. No cap, no filter. Should Penning be a guard and put Hurst at left tackle? San Francisco, Philly, and Dallas solidified at O-line. I don't want to fall behind, but it's hard to trade for a left tackle. We got to protect our QB investment. Ram left tackle, Penning right tackle, question mark. I think you got to go at least another game. I don't think one game will define it, but I do think the Saints are going to have to be proactive here, right? If Penning struggles again, do you start mixing it up? Is it Hurst at left tackle, Pete at left guard? Is it moving Penning inside? But that's going to be hard midseason to do. But either way, they're going to have to be proactive with that, and I hope that they do that later on. So we'll see how that all unfolds. Jerry G says Blake Grupe better than Will Lutz. I mean, look, I'm not going to try and have like sour grapes here with Will Lutz or like just start shitting on the guy. But I said after the Texans preseason game, Blake Grupe should be the starting kicker. That was before the Saints traded Will Lutz. And I said, Grupe's younger, Grupe costs less, but more importantly, Will Lutz has been on the downswing for the last couple of seasons. And I know it's one game, but the Broncos lost by 1 point, and Will Lutz missed an extra point, and he missed a field goal attempt. So he left 4 points on the board. The Saints won by 1 point, and Blake Grupe was 3 for 3, and one of them was from 52 yards. Sometimes the Saints do make the right move, and in this particular situation, they made the right move because they kept the younger kicker, who is on a longer leash in terms of his contract, is going to cost less, and you got draft compensation for Will Lutz. Trevon King says he also has no fear that tackle on Derrick Henry was great. I know DeMario helped, but still, DeMario was a menace in terms of the way he was tackling Derrick Henry. Is pretty nuts. Jerry G, with Turner being out, will Phillips or Foskey or Lalos take his place, or should we sign another defensive end this week? I mean, I'm sure they'll look at the market. My guess would be that either Foskey gets called up from healthy and active to active, or you could call up Lalos from the practice squad maybe. That might be a possibility there. I would like to see them kind of give Foskey a go because as bad as Foskey was the first 2 preseason games, we saw a little bit of a flash in the finale, and I wonder if that carries over a little bit in terms of confidence. Max says Granderson was constantly in the backfield. He absolutely was. He was fantastic on Sunday. Mike H, is Lalos going to be the practice squad elevation for Turner? It is possible. It is definitely possible, and I think that will be an option they're going to consider in the next 7 days or so. Alex says, not sure if he was mentioned yesterday, but another solid game for Pete Werner. Second most tackles and half a sack, epitome of consistency when healthy. 1,000% down to a T, Alex. Pete Werner, it's just about being healthy, man. It's just about being healthy. When he's in there, he's going to play really well. He doesn't really make mistakes. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. I love watching Pete Werner play football, man. I think he's an excellent player. So I just hope he stays healthy. And I say that for both linebackers. I think the Saints have one of the best linebacker duos in the league. The problem is the depth there at that position is horrible. So you got to hope that they stay healthy. And I think they'll be able to, for the most part, bearing some fluke. So I hope that's the case. Pete bowled out, though. Got to give him his credit. Margaret says, do we have anybody to replace Penning? Technically, no. I mean, you could say they could put Pete at left guard and Hurst at left tackle, or keep Hurst at left guard and put Pete at left tackle, which he played at college. But I just don't know. I don't see that as a solution. I think the Saints' best bet is sticking with Penning for now. If it gets worse, then make a decision, but get a couple more snaps and reps underneath his belt. See if he adapts to it. The one thing I'll say about Trevor Penning, last year in the preseason, he looked terrible the first game, and he started getting better. Maybe this was the worst game of the season for him. I hope to God it can't get worse than this, but I don't know if I'm pulling the plug immediately because the Saints are going to need him at some point, or else it's a waste of a pick. Trevon King says, Pete Werner isn't talked about enough. He's so good. He really is. So consistent. The other Mike says, who dat? Matt B says, New Orleans Saints. Want to know. That's for damn sure. Margaret says, what do you think of the Bucs win? I thought 2 things of it. I thought Baker played a pretty sound football game. Bucs defense should still be pretty solid underneath Todd Bowles. They forced a lot of turnovers. But I think the main takeaway is that I think the Vikings, who a lot of people picked as like that fraud team coming into this year, fluke team last year, could be a fluke team, proved that last year was a fluke. I think week 1 was a pretty good sample size for starters in terms of, okay, that might be who they're more of. Because the Vikings won a lot of games last year, 1 possession, and then what they do? They lost in the playoffs to Daniel Jones and the Giants, who might also be a fluke team from last year. I don't know. They got their bell rung yesterday by the Cowboys. That was just an absolute beatdown in the highest degree of beatdowns. But yeah, I thought for the Bucs win, I thought the Bucs showed that they can be a complimentary football team and scrap and claw, but I wasn't like thoroughly impressed. I thought it was a solid showing, but I thought it was more so the Vikings are who I actually thought they were last year. And last year, they were just a bad team that was able to win a couple of close games, and that propelled them to the playoffs. But I said it from the start of this year, and I might end up being wrong because I know Detroit looked good on Thursday night. I think Green Bay is going to win the NFC North. I said this a couple podcasts ago. I'm pretty sure I tweeted it out as well. I just think they have a pretty well-sound football team with the run game, young defense that's emerging, and then Jordan Love is just to play decent. So I don't really like the Vikings this year. I'm kind of out on them. And the Saints play them, so hopefully the Saints take advantage of that matchup. Margaret says getting rid of Lutz was a good choice. Say that again. Bayou Boys 504. Sup, Chris? I forgot tomorrow was a brick wall. Did you see him harass Derrick Henry and blow him up? He full-on threw Derrick Henry to the ground. I didn't even know that was possible, but he did. Like, DeMario is just that dude. Nat says Penning will be okay. He just needs to keep improving. NFC South is a better division than people think. I agree with you. I'm gonna pull up a tweet just so I can read it word for word because I agree with you with the NFC South thing. I think everyone wanted to dunk on the NFC South this year instead of just paying attention to the fact that divisions year to year are different. They're just different. So let me find it because I feel right about it. I really do. I know everyone likes to dunk on this division, but I think it is. June 30th, word for word, I'll read my tweet. I said, I'm just going to throw out this take on a Friday that could age poorly. I'm not saying it will happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if the NFC South had 2 playoff teams this season. We can revisit how stupid or smart I look in December. Again, it's 1 week. I don't know if 2 are going to make it, but I know that the Saints have a roster capable of making the playoffs. I know the Falcons have a roster capable of making the playoffs. And even the Bucs yesterday looked pretty solid, so I got to give them their props. Max says, I'm working in Denver right now, and when we went out to eat there were a lot of Denver fans hating on Lutz. Yeah, it's part of the thing, right? I saw Lutz was accountable for his misses yesterday, and a lot of fans were like, just cut him. And I'm like, man, after week 1, it's a tough look, and it's a really cruel world out there, I'll say. Bayou Boys 504, was I seeing things in the third or fourth quarter when I see Marshon was on the bench on a critical second and third down? Yeah, Marshon was kind of in and out of the lineup towards the end. I don't know if that was because of knee or whatever, but he was in there when it mattered most, which is important. And the secondary didn't really miss a beat even when he wasn't out there. And I got to give them credit for that. I thought the secondary was outstanding yesterday. Dwayne says, with Taysom, good play at QB yesterday. Did you see Jake going to the practice squad? No, I actually think what they're probably going to do is make Jake the emergency quarterback that you get that third roster spot with. And you can let Taysom kind of do whatever the hell he wants. When Jake comes back, I think we'll probably see more of Taysom Hill. Trevon says, Andre Diller works out at the Gold's Gym I go to out here in Washington State. If you think I'm not going to walk around in a Granderson jersey, that's great. That's trolling to the highest degree, man. The highest degree ever. That'd be pretty funny. Wesley says, DeMario looked 5 years younger than he did last year. LMAO, the vibes matter, man. No, the vibes do matter. Like, I think the Saints, it's a good thing that they feel this pressure, that they feel like, man, we got to win these games. We're good enough to win these games. Because last year, it felt like at some point the Saints quit. And I know they made it up a little bit towards the end of the year and made some ground to like scratch and claw us a meaningless 7-10. But there was a moment where I thought that team wasn't going to win again for the rest of the year. And they're like stuck at 4 wins or whatever it was. And I do think that there's pressure this year in a good way. And I think that this defense is going to be elite all year round. And if you just figure out that O-line, I think you're going to get complimentary football. But this team believes in each other. They believe in their quarterback, which is a good thing. And even DA, like, you could tell DA knows this is it for him because he's never going to be a head coach again if he doesn't win this year. Joshua says, yes, sir. Who dat? Absolutely, man. I mean, this Victory Mondays, you just feel better, right? You get out of bed, feeling good. The sleep is pretty pristine beforehand. It's just good vibes. Jerry says defense did well stopping Derrick Henry. Yeah, they did. I thought that the defense was phenomenal in the second half in that. A lot of people said, why the Titans go away from Derrick Henry? Well, why don't the Saints get credit for slowing down Derrick Henry? Because he only finished this game with 15 carries for 63 yards. And he started off, I think, with 4 carries for 36 yards. So the Saints, after that, were able to hold him for 11 carries for, if my math serves me correctly here, I think 27 yards on the bottom half. So the Saints were outstanding towards the second half of this game in terms of shutting down Derrick Henry. Joshua says, good game by the defense. We need AK. That's evident. Boy, do they. 2 more games without him, though. So hopefully they get it through it. Joshua also says the most criminal thing is Penning. I'm sure that was already covered, but that's got to get fixed when we're passing. It has to. And I'd like to think that the Saints are going to give him more help. They're going to chip and make sure that he's not in one-on-one situations the entire time because that can't happen. Like you said, he got exposed far too often. The coffee on a Monday tastes better with a W. It always does. I'm not even a coffee drinker, but everything just feels better on Mondays. Like after this, I'm going to go do some work. I'm going to rewatch the game just to get a little bit better of a second viewing. And then I might just go chill at a movie theater. Go watch Equalizer 3 or something. I haven't been to the movies in like 20 days, which is a long time for me. So I'm going to enjoy my Monday. I know that for sure. Black Order says Titans must have had it figured out that O-line trash. Derek Carr is suspect. I think, look, Derek Carr is suspect. I'll go suspect for red zone. The narratives about him being bad in the red zone, they didn't get erased after yesterday's win. He struggled there. O-line has to figure it out, though, because the O-line is the key, right? I think Derek Carr, just like most quarterbacks, if you give them a clean pocket, they're going to produce. But he didn't have a clean pocket a lot of the game, and you saw that ended up him getting frazzled and not playing his best football. So hopefully we'll see better. Now, before I get into any more comments you guys have, I want to get to one last sponsor of today's show, Crystal's Hot Sauce.
I need to clear something up about New Orleans. While our culinary scene might be on fire, our food has never been about heat. It's always been about flavor. And this is how New Orleans does flavor. Are we clear? Crystal, how New Orleans does flavor.
I want to give a big shout out to Crystal again for being part of the program as always. I get to any more comments you guys have before we wrap up this Monday. We'll go to Jacob here. Pete Warner had a little sleeper game, but still helped out for sure. Can't wait to see production. Yeah, I thought he played really well, and I'm really glad you guys mentioned that in the chat. A couple of you have talked about how Pete was kind of, I don't want to say an unsung hero, but Pete played really well, and I guess it doesn't get talked about as enough when you have Carl Granderson with the 1.5 sacks, when you have the turnovers, 3 interceptions, kind of get swept under the rug. Wesley says, shout out to our dude, Hold the Mayo on TV yesterday, looking stressed at the game. Yo, that picture cracked me up. And I don't blame him, by the way. Everyone's like, yo, why are you stressed at the game? We should be chilling. It was 9-9, and the Saints should have been beating the brakes off of the Titans. They weren't able to. So I respect it. Also, he's just so great, man. He's so good for content. And that should only help him with that picture. That was a fantastic picture. Like, he can use that as a meme for the rest of the season whenever he wants. And I kind of hope he does. Joshua says, I said before the game yesterday, he's bottom of tier 2 of QBs, in my opinion, a Dak Prescott level quarterback. You get excited at times, but there's always that lurking feeling of if he really has control. Yeah, I think that's very fair about Derek Carr. You take the good with the bad. The good thing was the things that Derek Carr is good at statistically, he showed yesterday. Derek Carr, in terms of fourth quarter comebacks, is one of the best quarterbacks in the league since he entered it. And yesterday, when the game mattered most, he made the biggest throws. Now, he struggled in the red zone. That has to get changed. And I think if it doesn't get changed, the Saints have to be more creative. Maybe a little bit more Taysom Hill in the red zone. Obviously, getting Alvin back will help. But I agree. I think he's in that, Kirk Cousins, Dak class. I think Dak and Kirk Cousins are better than him. But I think Derek, when he's on his game, is in that level. I do think that's where he falls in the tiers. Connor with the shift says, I think if the O-line gets better and we stay healthy, we can run the table and win the conference. I won't go that far yet because it's only week 1. What I will say, though, is if they fix the O-line, I think the Saints are going to be able to put themselves in a really good spot. But again, got to fix the O-line, got to play complimentary football. Trav504 says, did the refs give us a pass on the DC fumble, or was that an incomplete pass? I thought it was a fumble, but I'm not going to feel bad when the refs fuck up because we all got our hopes, dreams, and everything crushed during the 2018 season. So everyone's going to complain on Twitter today, but I'm going to tell them the same exact thing they told us when we saw our Saints have their Super Bowl trip ripped away from them. Get over it because it's week 1. So get over it. You told us to get over not making the Super Bowl. You guys can get over a week 1 loss. It was a fumble, though. I think that was a fumble for sure, and they did fuck up. Justin to Get Me Cash says, will Saints bring in another defensive end with Peyton Turner out at least for a few months? Maybe. I see you're suggesting trade for Chase Young. I know he's got the neck injury right now. Saints fans would be cool with that. I actually wouldn't mind that. I actually think the Saints, it's worth them taking a shot. They're kind of in win now mode anyway. Mike H., what did you think of the officiating yesterday? Feels like they missed a lot of big calls both ways. They did. So they missed the Carr fumble. That's a big one. They also missed the PI on Chris Olave. And if that Chris Olave PI is called, they have it inside the 10, up 4 with like 4 or 5 minutes left. The game would have been over because Tennessee couldn't score a touchdown yesterday, and they literally did not score a touchdown yesterday. So, yeah, it was bad on both sides. Absolutely. Bayou Boys 5-4. I don't think Derek Carr suspect. He had a touchdown in the red zone, and he should have another on a rollout pass. The wide receiver didn't get down, but it was a well-placed ball. I wouldn't say he's suspect. I think Derek Carr is who he is. I think he is who he is in terms of there's good and bad, and you just got to take both and hope that the good overwhelms the bad parts. Brandon says, y'all tripping like Titans defense is just a pushover. You're going to see other teams against that defense. Derek Carr won this game. He made the right play. I don't think the Titans defense is a pushover. I think the Titans defense in terms of the front four is outstanding. Like, I really think the Titans have one of the best defensive lines the Saints are going to face this year. And a lot of it starts with Jeffrey Simmons just being able to destroy the interior. But Harold Landry, who came back, looked great around the edge. And Arden Key looked great around the edge yesterday, too. Jerry says, I'm stitching on these referees this year. Go for it. Go for it. Bounty hunting season for these Zebras. Margaret, what about the PI? They didn't call the Titans. Would have not made it so close. Yeah, look. Like I said, if you want to complain about the Derek Carr fumble that wasn't called, that's fine. I agree. But the Saints also could have had a touchdown on that drive had they called the PI on Chris Olave. The guy got literally mugged on the deep throw, which is a really good deep ball, by the way. If Olave doesn't get mugged, it's a completion. Maybe a touchdown. Joshua says Chase Young would be a very nice addition. In theory, he would be. It's a type of guy that you take a chance on when you're in win-now mode and the Saints have the salary cap space for him. It's a gamble because you're trying to get a replacement for an injured guy and you're bringing in a guy in Chase Young who's also injured all the time. So there is that gamble, but it's one that I think if the Saints make, I would not blame them for doing so. You know, I think it's a respectable gamble, and it's one that I would be okay with them making if they go that route. Gregory says top 5 defense Titans. That was one of the toughest defense I will see this season. I don't disagree with you, Gregory. I think the Titans are going to have one of the toughest defense for sure. And I said this throughout the week. Mike Vrabel teams are coached extremely well. This is a big win. Like, this is a big win for Dennis Allen head-to-head against a Mike Vrabel defense for them to end up winning. Because Mike Vrabel is a coach of the year type of coach who really delivers even when his rosters aren't great. You know, I don't think the Titans got a lot of work with offensively, you know, but they scrap and claw. And I guarantee you the Titans are going to scrap and claw to like 8 wins this year, 9 wins, around that ballpark. So I thought this was a good win for them. Trevon says, if we go edge, Montez Sweat would instantly make us top 5. Montez Sweat would be great for them. I don't see any, scenario where Washington goes that route in terms of giving him up. He was great yesterday. I think he forced 2 fumbles. He's an outstanding player. I just don't think Washington would give him up at all. But who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. I think that's the type of guy they'd want to keep around. Jacob says, what did you think of Jamal Williams? I think he'll shine when backup mode / red zone with AK back. Agree. I think a lot of the wrong move today would be rip Jamal Williams. Oh, didn't play great, whatever. Like, no, he is not a lead back. He's a really good part of a committee. And when Alvin comes back and when Kendrick Miller comes back, Jamal's going to shine in his role like he did last year with Detroit with DeAndre Swift. Right now, though, this is not a great role for him as a number 1 guy where every play is just a run up the gut and he's getting 2-3 yards. It's not a good role for him. He will be better when Alvin's back. No doubt about it. I'm not even worried about it. Margaret says our division is always tough to play against. They have a good defense. Yeah, look, I think the South is going to be very underrated this year. Very underrated. Margaret says no O-line for Williams. And then Trevon King says Brzee. I thought Brzee was really good. I thought he looked really, really good for them. So I think the sky's the limit for that kid. Again, you took a number 1 recruit in high school, and now you're just hoping he stays healthy. Justin to get me cash says, I know he's a bit of a head case right now, but what about Chandler Jones? I don't know if the Saints want to go that route, because you talk about head case, the Chandler Jones situation right now is a little dicey. But we'll see. I mean, it seems like he's going to get moved at some point. I can't see the Raiders continuing this kind of situation. I can't. But who knows? I do agree with you. I think the Raiders will trade him. There's no doubt in my mind. I just don't know if the Saints want to enter that market. But if they do, the Saints got a good culture. Hopefully they can bring him in. And if it doesn't work out, you just got to get rid of him. Joshua says, looks like we made the right move at kicker. Lutz struggled yesterday. Lutz struggled. Groupie went 3 for 3, made a 52-yarder. So that was just great. Gregory says, with the Peyton Turner injury, do we call up Lelos or Phillips from the practice squad? I'd imagine one of them, yeah. I know fans would probably want Lelos considering what he did, but who knows? Saints can go either way, but I'd imagine one of them will get called up, and I'd imagine that Foskey ends up being instead of being a healthy scratch, he actually is active, but we'll see on Monday, week 2. Wesley says, in Chandler Jones' defense, that's a really terrible organization. Yeah, no, I'll give him that. Raiders are not run extremely well. We know that. But it's a tough spot for the Saints to figure out in terms of whether or not you want to bring Chandler Jones in. But who knows? I mean, the Saints have options. They definitely have options. Tally90 says the O-line needs to do better for the running back. It does. There's no doubt about it. The O-line yesterday was not good in any facet. They held up when it mattered most. That's what I'll give them. But the O-line was not great yesterday. There's no doubt about it. But anyway, guys, it's been a blast talking with you on this Monday morning. I think the Saints, again, really good spot. I'm not worried. 16-15 is not the ugliest of wins in the world. I think the Titans are a respectable opponent. I actually had them winning 23-20, so I thought it'd be a close game. I thought the offense would look better, so that wasn't great. But overall, I'm not worried. The only concern I'd have is this comment, which is pretty funny. Death taxes and bust at D-line. What's next for PT? Hopefully him getting rehabbed and back to 100%. That's what's next. But it is definitely a tough spot for Peyton Turner. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this Monday edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. If anyone missed it, I'll make sure to have this back up on Twitter and in video format in just a little bit. I thank you so much for tuning in on this Monday. I hope you guys have a phenomenal victory Monday. I hope the rest of your week is great. You can enjoy it with good vibes because our New Orleans Saints are 1-0. And I'll have more content later this week when we start previewing that Panthers matchup. But until then, guys, enjoy your victory Monday, and we'll be back here on the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation. Have a great Monday, everyone.